for today's compassion challenge. I actually had a kind of a weird epiphany. I was actually listening to Tom Billio and Rachel Hollis have a conversation, and that was an amazing conversation. I felt like I was with my closest friend. Very, very raw and real. But when when they were talking about childhood trauma, I actually started kind of reflecting on my own childhood. The Some of the things that I went through, you know. And I had a relatively good childhood. It wasn't perfect, no one's childhood is perfect, but I did have a pretty good childhood. But there were of course moments that were tough for little me. And when I started reflecting on my life at a very, very young age. I think I started doing it back in middle school when I started becoming aware of my own past self and my past wounds. And then I think it's been a continuous journey of reevaluating and almost like I'm finding myself again, right? Only to realize that it was always there. It's But today I really dug deep. I really, really, really tried to get to the core of why I felt the way I did, right? Why I have nervousness um, over certain things, why I feel confident about certain things. And I'll probably go through specifics later, not in this video, but it really was a deeply, deeply healing, a healing journey for me. And kind of a funny thing I realized, it's not really a realization, but it's that everyone changes, right? Everyone grows. It's an obvious fact. We're not the same as we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? We're not the same, but we don't really think about that, right? We're not really aware of that, right? It's almost like, I know for me, usually when I'm in my default mode, when I talk to people, I assume that that person was always that way, even though that's not the case, right? We always change all the time. We're like shapeshifters. You know, people don't like to change, but people always, right? The only constant is change, as Heraclitus would say. It's very, but um, when I really started realizing it, not just realizing it, but really feeling it, right? So this is like the difference between, like what Richard Feynman would say, right? Between knowing, right, knowledge, and understanding. Understanding is much more deeper, right? So a lot of things are obvious, right? They're obvious facts, but a lot of things aren't understood, right? They're not understood, like at a more, uh, hate to use the word deeper, right? Because it's overused, right? Deeper is also overused, but at a more visceral, right? At a more uh, substantive level. It's at a more we can even call it physiological, right? Instead of it being all intellectual, right? It actually makes sense, right? So I guess one I'm going on a tangent, but one good example of this would be like math, right? Knowing and understanding in math are completely different things, right? Any fool can memorize. I forget the quote. Who said that quote? But any, hate to use the word fool too, but that was a word that people used back then, right? But any fool can memorize, but it takes a wise man to actually understand. So, I'm only still starting my kind of like a, you can call it awakening. Not really, right? Not really. It's just but kind of like going on this journey, right? A reflection or reflecting on my life, introspecting. That's what I've been doing for probably the past 3 years now, right? Since I started college. Well, actually, about 4 now, I suppose. But I've been kind of like reflecting on my life, right? What my life meant, how my childhood affected who I am today, and eventually kind of making meaning out of it, right? Like Lori Gottlieb, her story was about integrating, right? It's not about denying it, but it's about accepting it, right? Accepting it and healing it, right? By integrating it. That's what Carl Jung would say too, right? Integrate it into the psyche. And oh, the quote, by the way, I just looked it up. Any fool can remember. The point is to understand. It might be Einstein. Makes sense. Well, it might not be. It might just be a pseudo quote, right? Not an actual quote, but yeah. And I went on that whole tangent because when I started to really dig deep into how my childhood made me who I am, how I've grown a lot, and I still have a lot to grow. I've really come to just appreciate people a lot more. It gives me perspective, right? Um, everyone was once a child. When when Joe Rogan talked about when he saw his kids growing up, right, and he realized, right, everyone was once a kid, right? Even that grandmother smoking at the casino, right? Even she was 5 years old at one time. When he said that, that was the weirdest feeling in the world. It felt like something clicked, right? It felt like I cracked the code, right? Like I cracked the code, and not me, but it's like just things clicked, like it was where uh, it it allowed me, like these thoughts allowed me to be a lot more, and still allow me to be a lot more compassionate towards people, right? Because they're all, everyone still has an inner child within them. And when I say inner child, right, that's not in a derogatory way, right? That's in a, everyone's, no matter who you are, right, everyone's soft inside, literally, too. We have intestines and organs, right, they're all soft. But also, mentally, too, right? Not mentally, but psychologically. Right? Everyone's soft inside. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. Right? I'm saying that in the most compassionate way, right? I'm soft inside too, right? And that just reminds me to be more, more humane towards people and more good towards people, right? To give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Do I still have to set boundaries? 100%, right? do I still have to eat, right? Um, do I still have to maintain my ground, right? Maintain my values, right? Of course, right? Of course. But it gives me a lot more space to be more compassionate towards people. Right? And just like I mentioned in the first video, right? Humility, a very good quote, right? Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, right? It's thinking of yourself less. And so, right, it's just about doing the best for people, right? Not expecting anything, right? Not expecting anything in return, right? Just doing good for goodness itself, right? No ulterior motives. Living a virtuous life for virtue itself, as Marcus Aurelius would say. So yeah, that was the big breakthrough I had today. Kind of getting more in touch with my past self. That allowed me to be a lot more compassionate. And it was like a wake up call, a reminder, a reminder just to be good to people, to be good to people. So that was the what should I call it? Something that I did good today, and then now, right, something that I can improve on. For today, let me think. Since I didn't have work either, or work today either, there wasn't a lot of ways to practice compassion. Oh yes, yes, there was one thing though. When I was out running, I actually saw a lady walking her dog, and oh, this was a good part. This was a good part, and then I'll mention the part again. So, the dog was getting really excited and jumping around, and that made me feel really good. The dog was excited. I was excited being out on a run. That was a really highlight of my day. The skies were beautiful too. But what I could improve on the run, I think it's to be more courteous towards people driving on the roads. I always make sure to stay away from cars, right? To not get in their way, basically. I'm pretty good about that. But what I need to improve on is I kind of have like this tension, right? Animosity towards cars. And right, that's not really fair to the people, but it makes sense, right? Because I'm running, right? So I'm pretty vulnerable, right? But a car's, right? It's like a 1 ton hunk of metal coming at me at 30 miles per hour, right? I'm not gonna survive, right? So it makes sense why I have animosity towards drivers, right? Because frankly, people suck at driving, including me. Right? I suck at driving. 90% of people suck at driving, right? Most people shouldn't be driving. But, but, that's not really fair either, right? It is important for me, right? I appreciate my body trying to, well, save my life, right? Not be all. If I wasn't tense, right? If I wasn't stressed out about cars, right? I would be out on the roads and I would get killed instantly, right? But because I have so much stress over cars, right? It might actually negatively affect how I deal with the drivers, right? So that's kind of the big thing I need to improve on, right? To give drivers the benefit of the doubt. And probably to do that, I think I just need to be more vigilant. I just need to be more vigilant about staying safe, right? Staying safe, and I I should also try to make eye contact with the drivers, if possible, right? If it's possible, just to make sure, just to make sure that there's not going to be any accident or things like that. So yeah, those were the two main things that I figured out. The big thing I improved on, getting more in touch with my past self. The big thing I need to improve on is to be kinder to other drivers.